Anyway, guys, my kids just cracked me up. I said to my son, Thomas, I could move anywhere in the country. Where would you want me to move so you can come visit me? You know what his answer was? Dad, would I be obligated to actually come visit you? Well, this daughter that I was talking about, when she was in second grade, she was asked that question, what does your dad do? And he talks. She called me recently and she asked me an interesting question. She said, Dad, do you have any regrets? And I said, Dolly, you can answer that question for me. She goes, Dad, I can. You have no regrets because you couldn't be who you are today if you hadn't gone through what you've gone through. It reminds me of the quotation, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. She asked me another question. Dad, that therapy really helped you 10 years ago. It's like Bobby said, you used to be like a mosquito on cocaine all day and you've really calmed down. Dad, we like this new version of you. Would you have raised us differently? I go, well, Dolly, the problem with parenting is by the time you're experienced, you're unemployed. I said, but you know, I would have done something differently, and I accidentally did it right just a couple of times because I learned something about pausing and looking for the inspired thought. Now, by the way, my daughter Dolly, just to give you some insight into her personality, when she was a baby, I remember her sitting there in her crib looking through those bars, and she's looking me in the eyes like, I'm smarter than you are. Well, I'm going down the freeway one day, and I look in the rearview mirror, and she's out of her car seat. And being the parental pygmy I was at the time, I go, hey, get back in your car seat. She's looking at me like, yeah, right. So I went, get back in your car seat or else. She's looking at me like, bring it on. So I pulled off of I-15, I got out of my car, and I stopped and I paused. Because I just learned something new. Maybe the first idea that comes into your head isn't the best one. So I paused and I thought, well, where do you find inspiration? Now, some people call it God, some people call it the higher self, whatever you call it, this is exactly, literally what happened. I looked up and I said, she's your daughter, what do you want me to do with her? And this thought crashed into my head, give her a hug. Not feeling like a hug, you got any more ideas? But I paused, and the words came into my head, if you're not going to listen, don't ask anymore. So I went over to the other side of the car, I opened up the door, because we've done this before, and she's standing there ready for a fight. And I'm thinking, this will never work, but I went, Dolly, come give Daddy a hug. I had never seen her do this before. She completely melted. She ran across that seat, she jumped into my arms, she wrapped her arms around my neck, and she started to sob uncontrollably. I didn't know what was going on. But when she stopped crying, I said, are you ready to go home? She goes, mm-hmm. And we didn't have another problem all the way home. So every once in a while, I accidentally got it right. Short time after that, I said, hey, Dolly, it's time to get ready for church. You need to take a bath. And like a sumo wrestler, she stood there like, yeah, right. I sat there with the inspired thought. I go, well, it worked last time. So I sat there thinking, I go, oh, horseback ride. Dolly, horseback ride. And she jumped right onto my back. And we went galloping over to the tub. She's looking at the tub, she's looking at me, and I go, Indians coming, hide in the tub. She jumped off my back with all her clothes on, bam, she is in the tub. And I go, boy, this stuff works great. But I kind of forgot that a lot of times. But I said, Dolly, there would have been more times when I would have paused and reflected and connected. And my daughter wanted a car. I said, well, Anna, you keep quitting your jobs. I'll tell you what, I'll get you a car, but if you quit, we sell the car. And she agreed. We had a deal. 1 week later, after she got the car, she calls me, Dad, I quit my job at Costco. I guess you get the car. Well, what worked in the past doesn't mean it's going to work in the future. And so I just learned something new. I said, hey, I'm coming over. And I came over, and I sat across from her. And some of you saw this last week when I looked her in the eye, and we sat there long enough to just completely calm down. I said, so what are we going to do about the car? Well, Dad, a deal is a deal. We sell the car. I said, why don't we brainstorm? What's something else we could do? Oh, well, I get to keep the car, you give me money for gas and insurance, and I can do whatever I want to do. I said, that's an idea too. Let's brainstorm some more. You know, I once had a gal from Dallas, Texas say, Bob, I hate asking you for advice. I said, why? I asked you, should I move to California? You said, between the two of us, who's most qualified to know if you should move to California? So I sat there. And then after about 15 minutes, she goes, and it got really calm, really peaceful. She goes, Dad, why don't we park the car in your driveway? I can only use the car if I'm looking for a job or I need to go to the doctor. And we knew in that moment that was a much better idea than the ones we had in the past. Pause, connect, reflect. You guys, I had a 4-year-old over at our house. And at one point, there's 400 Legos all over the floor. She's getting up to go away. I go, do you want to clean up the Legos? What 4-year-old would? So I got down on my knee, and I looked her right in the eye, and I waited for the inspired thought, and it hit me. Hey, watch this. And I grabbed a bunch of the Legos, and I had a plastic bag, and I go, 1, 2. She grabs another bag. 1, 5, 6. She couldn't even count. But she was so excited to fill up her bags faster than I could fill up my bags. And in a few minutes, they were all picked up. We paused, we connected, and we reflected. So just a little idea about how to calm your mind. I just want to give you the metaphor my coach taught me. Let's take a snow globe and shake it up. Can you see clearly through the snow globe when it's all shook up? No. What do you have to wait for it to do before you know what's in the snow globe? Settle. So what do you have to do? What are the directions that you have to follow? What's the checklist that you have to go through to make it settle? Well, let me see if I get... You just have to do nothing. And it eventually settles, and that is like your mind. Your mind is full of all these thoughts. But when does the inspiration come? I just read, did you know that most business people, their biggest inspirational ideas come when they're either in the shower, driving to work, or on vacation, because they're not thinking, they're thoughtless. And then all of a sudden, that question that they've been holding in their mind pops into the front. Just one more example of that. A dog is chasing his tail. He can't catch it. The dog goes, I need somebody to consult with me. So he hires a consultant. And the consultant says, so what's the problem? Oh, this tail is so elusive, I can't catch it. I need some work on speed. If I was just a little faster, I could catch the tail. He goes, okay. Anything else? Yeah. Strategy. Do you have any strategies for catching that tail? He goes, okay, so strategy. Anything else? Time management. Do you know I'm spending 10 hours a day trying to catch that tail? And then he gives them a paradigm shift. He gives them a new idea to consider. He said, it's your tail. Now the dog can do one of two things. Okay, it's my tail, let me write that down. It's my tail. Now what are the steps I need to go through to remember that it's my tail? He didn't get it. But the dog that goes, oh, it's my tail, and suddenly all of his problems go away. Pause, connect, and reflect. Okay, so you know I have now 500 quotes, jokes, and stories memorized. One of my new favorite ones is this, and then I'll end with this. As I reflect on my life, I've noticed that the times that I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was being redirected towards something better. Thank you.